Will Howard is the other big one here. Will Howard and his words. I mean, to me, he spoke very highly of Will, but what stood out was not what he sees in Will or who Will is, because I think all of those things are already there and we're aware of. It's the almost like a challenge that he presented to himself to get Will to a place where he is the next guy. We've had these conversations. We've had people who have fired back at us, and we have had to disagree with on Will could be the guy with time under Aaron Rodgers. I think today is the first time that I viewed it differently than Aaron's just going to be a mentor. And I truly did look at it. And my understanding now is that Aaron really embraces this as a challenge, which to me, I don't know, maybe puts him on a bigger pedestal, gives him a little bit of a head start, I would say. Did it do the same for you? Because to be honest, I mean, I was fired up about what it was the first, and I've used fired up too many times in this podcast. I was going to say excited, but that's just what it is. Like, it's the first time that I really viewed Will Howard in that situation totally different than, he's a 6th round rookie and Aaron Rodgers is cool and probably going to help him, but how much could he help him? Maybe a lot.
I can certainly understand the optimism growing there, truly. I think this is unfortunately where my optimism started to kind of fade. Not that I don't think this is possible, not that I don't think Will Howard is capable. Again, we're not to rehash the same conversation that we have had and will continue to have surrounding the Steelers' recent 6th round pick. All that being said, I like that Aaron Rodgers clearly was trying to, in my estimation, set a very optimistic sort of like agenda and like set mindset in this sort of hiatus until training camp. I think part of that is incorporating this rookie quarterback who a lot of people see potential in, a lot of people see a lot of upside in, and a future with the organization. I don't know how much, once the season gets started, that challenge remains a priority for Rodgers and the rest of the team. I think the priorities drastically shift to winning football games, and I think making sure your 6th round pick is up to speed and sort of in place to take over the keys to the car is way down the priority list once the season actually starts. For right now, it's incredible. It's wonderful that this sort of mentorship bond is continuing to grow at a nice sort of steady pace. But it didn't get me as, fired up as you. There were lots of this conversation that did, elicit optimism for me. This particular part was not one of them.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't have a response to that one. You look at Will Howard right now, to me, I hope turns into something. It does not, again, like, let's not sit here and think that it changes the plans of 2026 in the NFL draft. To me, it's just like, look at, I think that Aaron Rodgers is a guy that's won a Super Bowl, 4 MVPs. He's the highest paid NFL player, of all time in the existence of the NFL, which is wild. And he's saying, hey, this season I want to win a Super Bowl and I want Will Howard to be great. Okay, well, that's awesome. You want to know who I don't think is going to be great because he didn't say his name? Skylar Thompson. And I just, I'll say one name that didn't get as much airtime today as I thought. Tell me if I'm looking too far into this. Calvin Austin didn't come up almost once.
That is disappointing. It's especially disappointing for this podcast who, we did start the #1 fan club for Calvin Austin. You can, catch my news blast coming out daily. Just kidding. But I think it was disappointing that he's, maybe not in the first sentence, like the immediate, sort of first couple of words from Rodgers, but, I'm not losing hope yet. I think there is so much for Calvin Austin to still prove on the football field that it almost is sort of another galvanizing moment. It's another sort of like way to encourage him or motivate him to, step up into that #2 role. It is still totally up in the air. It is completely up for grabs. And so, he may not be the #2 offensive threat in Pittsburgh right now, but he could be in a month or two's time. And I think the challenge is being laid out for him further here.
I agree. Did you catch his, and then we'll move on after this one, did you catch his little dig at the Pittsburgh Steelers? Kind of a hint that TJ Watt is, coming back, getting a deal. Once we get our future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year linebacker back. I was like, oh, Aaron, what you know, pal? It's everything everybody else knows, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get a deal done with TJ Watt. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers. To be honest, dude, shout out to Aaron Rodgers. Today was a good for June 24th when there is nothing. I was literally in a meeting where we were talking about how there is nothing happening, and we just got to ride the wave of coast it out, go on vacation with your family, sleep a little bit, you know what I mean? Whatever you got to do before training camp. Aaron Rodgers is giving us life, and I'm going to be honest, very appreciative, very appreciated to the quarterback and the guy that we can't talk about for the next 5 weeks because he made that very. I don't want to be talked about for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay,
dude, there's nothing else. Chances are we're going to talk about you 1 or 2 times, just once or twice, but then we'll call it a day. All right, let's move it on.